My name's Janet and I'm a team lead physiotherapist at Whitefield Day Hospital. I'm based at Queen Margaret Hospital in Fife. I'm lead in a day hospital, but we also see outpatients and some ward cover as well. But with reference to Parkinson's, or people with Parkinson's, we either see people in a day hospital or as an outpatient or in a multidisciplinary clinic, so a little bit of everything. There's lots of things that we can help with within physiotherapy. There's the obvious things that affect perhaps everybody as they age, so strength and balance, but there's some very specific things for people with Parkinson's. So things that we help with are obviously gait problems, posture. If they have freezing of gait, we can help with cueing, but we can also help with things that perhaps you might not have thought about. So with pain, with respiratory problems, virtually all of the motor signs of Parkinson's, there may be something that physiotherapy can help with. For an assessment with somebody with Parkinson's, I always say to them, I'm going to look at you top to toe. And in actual fact, that's what I do. I start at the top and I work down to their feet. So we look at everything, but with a focus on their joint mobility, their strength, their balance, their walking, but also their function, and specific issues, like I've said before, with freezing, with their gait, with their walking, with their turning. But it can also be looking at their respiratory function or their pain, but really quite a detailed, thorough assessment when I see somebody for the first time, so that we can then set goals and outcomes for that person. So really in conjunction with what they want to be able to do, and that's quite a variety of things. That we really look at person's personal outcomes, what they want to be able to achieve, and work with them to get that. It can be anything from a one-off visit. For example, if they're newly diagnosed and they need an exercise intervention, I may see and assess them and refer them straight on to an exercise specialist in the community. So I've only seen them once. With other people, we might see them more frequently, on a weekly basis if they're coming to day hospital. And the length of time really isn't specified. It's until they've reached their optimal function or their goals. And with some people, we'll see them on and off. We'll see them perhaps every couple of months or so. We can't keep people on our books here for a sort of a long-term input, but they can be easily re-referred through the Parkinson's service. So we do see some people time and time again. But it depends on what they need. It is based on a needs-based service. There are set things that we do with everybody that are held within the Parkinson's guidelines for physiotherapy, and then obviously we mix and match depending on people's particular needs. But it's important that we set a baseline so we can measure change, but it can also be very useful for the doctors and nurses if they're making medication changes, that we can report back and say how people are getting on with those, whether there's been a change, an improvement, or any worse. Exercise is really important for somebody with Parkinson's. As a physiotherapist, I'm going to say it's the most important thing, but obviously I realise that's maybe not true. But for a physio, exercise is really vital. And keeping going with exercise, either on diagnosis or further down the line, is really important. I quite often say to people, tell me what you're doing with their exercise and their physical activity. And I say to them, I'm going to ask you to do a little bit more, no matter what you're doing. Obviously, we can target the type of exercise to the stage that the person's at or their goals, or obviously our findings on assessment, we'll target it more to their needs. But exercise as a broad spectrum is really important. It's vital for somebody with Parkinson's, and it can really help slow the symptoms if you do enough exercise at the right intensity, the right type of exercise. When it comes to exercise, the amount is really important. The physical activity guidelines are the same for somebody with Parkinson's as any other person. So 150 minutes a week, which is 2.5 hours in old money. And it's really important that people meet those guidelines. The guidelines also mention strength and balance for older adults. And again, that's really important that you're meeting those strength and balance guidelines as well. So if somebody is newly diagnosed, then really it's getting the intensity right. There's some specific programs that people can go on, Parkinson's specific programs that are really quite high intensity exercise, and I think that surprises people. We're certainly not going to be giving people at that level, if they can manage it, gentle exercise. They're going to be doing quite high intensity work with, I was just about to, sort of large movements as well. But then as you perhaps progress through the Parkinson's journey, we may be offering exercises that's more specific, say, to somebody who's falling. So looking more then at strength and balance, and again, there's specific programs you can go through that are evidence-based for falls, that are still appropriate for somebody with Parkinson's. And then as we get later on in the journey, we may then be going for a more seated, functional exercise plan, very task-specific, so we can work at the issues that they have. So a very broad spectrum. When people have been coming to physiotherapy, the thing that they often report back to us is, I suppose in general, how much better they feel because they're more active. And that's something that we very much encourage. I think the best thing for me is when people say that they've been able to do something that they haven't been able to do for a while. And it can be something really simple. It can be just to get out of the chair by themselves, or it can be that they come back with a wee little smile on their face and they say, I've been on the bus and I've made it into town and back again, and I managed to walk around town, and I used that technique you told me about when I got into the crowds, and that really worked. And hearing that feedback is really important. It knows that you know that somebody is, making their goals, but also that they're doing what you've suggested, and it's working for them. A lot of the work that we do, particularly in the early days, but also through, is advising people how to self-manage, what they could or should be doing, but also more importantly, what are the triggers to come back to physiotherapy or to see the Parkinson's nurse specialist if there are things that they are concerned about. But a lot of advice is around how they're going to manage their own physical issues. If somebody's reporting problems with their walking and they could be freezing, so that's their feet, in layman's terms, I suppose, sticking to the floor or being able to start walking, then we'll go through some cueing techniques with the person, and they can take many different forms. They can be visual cueing techniques, so it can be things like lines on the floor or a laser cane that provides the line for you for them to step over. Or it could be auditory techniques. They can count, you can listen to music. Music is fabulous to help you with your walking. Or you can even get an app on your phone now that gives you a metronome and a regular beat to walk to. And that can be really very helpful for people to utilise to help them stop freezing. I think the thing I would like to emphasise is, again, just going down, exercise is important. To make sure I get that message over. But also to say that if you're self-referring to a physiotherapist, to ensure that if you're going for something that's specific for your Parkinson's, to look for somebody that is aware of the issues around Parkinson's. That's not necessarily true though if you have back pain or other respiratory issues, for example, then other specialist areas may be more suited to help you. But they just need an awareness of what could be going on due to your Parkinson's as well.